Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Tonight we're going to go over chapter 2 in the book called The Paths of Pravritti and Nivritti by Swami Niranjan Ananda Saraswati. Yes, we're making this a thing, aren't we? Good evening, uppity unicorn. How are you today? All right, so blue light because it's Thursday. Serious Suit 888, my friend. Greetings. Thursday. So we went over chapter 1, and it was a story called The Traveler's Tale. And basically, in the Paths of Pravritti and Vritti, The Traveler's Tale was about a traveler who was on his way to paradise, to heaven, to the great beyond, to infinity, and he stopped to rest at a hotel. And in this hotel, this staff and the manager did not want him to leave, so they gave him all the worldly pleasures that one could enjoy, right? There were 2 women specifically assigned to make sure that he was taken care of, and he didn't want to leave, and he stayed there for so long that he eventually forgot his whole mission. He forgot where he was going, what he was doing, and he was becoming more and more of a permanent resident of that hotel. And then a guide came along and helped to remind him of his purpose. The guide offered to help show him the way to get to the City of Light. And of course, the hotel staff did everything they could to try to distract the guide, make him stay. Excuse me, not the guy, but distract the guest and make him stay. But eventually, he realized how important his mission was and continued on his journey. And that's what's going on with all of us. We've found ourselves incarnated into this physical body, and the longer that we stay here, the more that we believe that we are a part of this simulation, this program, this, this whole debacle, shebang, bang, boogie that's going on. We think that we're a part of it, not realizing that we've all got a bigger mission, that we are all on the way to the City of Light. And we may stay here for a couple of lifetimes, but eventually we will all regain our status as travelers to the destination. So that was a great metaphor, and we're going to continue to go a little bit deeper, not just metaphorically, but quite literally, on how this thing is working out. Nate Jones, greetings. Virez Beats, peace. 1, greetings. So I got distracted making a Instagram post, and now my coffee's cold. So that's all right. That's quite all right. So hope you guys are enjoying this, because I'm gonna be doing it. I enjoy it. Cradle of Humankind, peace. And let's get started. I hope you guys have this book. I hope that it's on the way. I hope you're planning on digging into it yourself. I love having the hard copy so that I can highlight and go back over when the time calls. Because, I bought this probably exactly a year ago. In Human Education, Peace D. Yeah, I bought this book probably a year ago. And, I just forgot that everyone else wasn't reading these books. So, I kept seeing that there was a disconnect in people's understanding. So I thought it'd be a good idea to go back over this collection, and that's what we're doing now. So for those of you who are signed up for the YouTube membership, right, the join button next to subscribe, go ahead and click that if you haven't already. We're going to be covering this on Sunday. Jump on board. I want to hear what you think about this. I want to hear what you take away from it. So, without further ado, let's begin. Go ahead and like this video if this is the type of content that you want to see. Go ahead and like this video if you enjoy this kind of thing. If you want me to keep doing the live lecture, I guess it's a lecture, because technically a lecture is when you're teaching out of a book. So that's what we're doing here. Like the video if you like that. I'm going to flip the camera around, and we're about to get started. Naturally Natured, good evening. Jewel, peace, peace. Okay. Yeah, I like doing this. I'm probably going to be doing this as often as possible. I mean, why not? This is what I do either way by myself. So, it's just nice to be able to do it with a little bit of company. Cradle of Humankind. I'm not sure if there is an ebook. I think this one is, as far as I've seen, I think this one is strictly a physical kind of deal. Um, but yeah, Wisdom Square. What's up, bro? Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, so let's dive into the second chapter and let me know what you guys think in the chat. Van Kia F. Roll. Good evening. All right. Just getting the camera situated here. Accidentally holding down the power button. Definitely don't want to do that. All right. So this should probably go on for maybe an hour or two. You guys know how this goes by now. Hopefully you have the hard copy. You can read it on your own. If not, then that's why I'm doing this. Austin AWalt, peace, bro. Stuffed Dog, welcome, welcome. Good to see you, my brother. All right, let's move forward. I'm gonna turn on the light. Okay. All right. So, the path of Pravritti. The seers and thinkers have defined two paths on which the journey of life can take place. One is known as the path of Pravritti, which leads towards vrittis, involvement and participation. The other is that of Nivritti, which means becoming separate from that process of involvement. Having come into this world and this body and being under the influence and sway of the senses and mind, the feelings and emotions, the natural inclination of the human nature and human personality is to become involved in the outer sensorial experience that is common to all, both the saint and the sinner. Upon acquiring the body, the senses, and the mind both become involved in the process which is extroverted, sensorial, emotional, mental, external, gross, and physical. The basic starting point for any journey is the Pravritti path, no matter who the traveler is. Pravritti is composed of two words. Pra is a prefix indicating existence and emergence, strength, and deep involvement. And vritti means a circular motion, a circular effect, or the involved process. Therefore, the Pravritti path indicates the journey towards the dimension of the senses and sense objects. All right, that's important right there. So that tells you what the word Pravritti means, right? Pra indicates existence and emergence, strength and involvement. Vritti, as we learned the other night, it means a circular motion. It is a mental modification. It's the creation of your frameworks and your thought process, right? So the path of Pravritti is about the journey towards the dimension of the senses and the sense objects. Check. The nature of the world is nashwara, transient, that which existed yesterday and will exist tomorrow. Nashwara is not eternal. It is subject to birth and death, to change. When the spirit is born into this world, then all around in life, in the environment, society, world, and creation, it experiences transience, not immortality. It experiences birth and death. Caught in this web, whatever you do, the way you live, eat, sleep, think, and behave is under the sway of vrittis, right? So everything you do, every single thing you do is under the influence, under the sway of these vrittis, all right? Vrittis are an expression of the mind. The concept of vritti will become clear if you compare life to a lake. Imagine that the waters of the lake are completely still. There is no movement, no ripple of any kind. In those still waters, you can see the reflection of the sky, the clouds, the sun, the moon, the stars, the mountains, the trees. The reflection is seen only when the waters of the lake are absolutely calm and still. If it begins to rain and drops of rain fall on the lake, or if a pebble is thrown into the lake, what will happen to the calm and the still surface of the lake? Even if a raindrop falls on the lake, at the point where it enters the lake, small concentric circles or ripples will be created. Those circles or ripples are vrittis. The more the rainfall, the more disturbed the outer surface of a lake. As the waters become disturbed, you will not be able to see any reflection in it. That is identical to what happens when you interact with the world of the five senses. Very important. Very important. Let me know if you follow. Mad Bear, greetings, greetings. Shout out to Ophil. The influences of nature, society, and company create different ripples in the mind. You are easily influenced by people, situations, circumstances, and events, and lose clarity of mind. You get sucked into one particular feeling, experience, desire, obsession, passion, need, or greed. The broad vision in relation to life is lost. That is when your viewpoint becomes narrow. The narrower your viewpoint, the more material you become, as you are able to see only that which is highlighted before you, whether it is your need, greed, ambition, mentality, or performance. Anything that you are involved in is highlighted. That is the creation of a vritti. Keep that in mind. So as we talk about vrittis here, he's explaining exactly what they are so there's no confusion. Okay? This is important. I highlighted it. The narrower your viewpoint, the more material you become. Think about all the people that you try to talk to who are so stuck in their ways, so narrow-minded, so close-minded, that, they literally can't hear anything. They can't hear anything. They're stuck. They're becoming more and more dense, more and more material. As you are only able to see that which is highlighted before you, whether it is your need, greed, ambition, mentality, or performance. Anything that you are involved in is highlighted. That is the creation of a vritti. The creation of vrittis takes away the harmony, balance, and peace of mind. The mind becomes ordinary, normal, gross, and material. All the attributes of the mind, such as the intellect, memory, and ego, are also influenced by the narrowness of mind. Remember we talked the other night about the the antakarana, which is the fourfold inner tool of the mind. And that's what he just listed there if you didn't catch that. Basically what he said was all the attributes of the mind, such as the intellect, memory, and ego. And remember here we talked about the intellect is buddhi, memory would be the chitta aspect, and then ego is the ahamkara. So basically, all the attributes of mind, such as the intellect, memory, and ego, are also influenced by the narrowness of mind, which indicates intensification of a vritti, right? So this is how the vrittis become intensified. There may be many vrittis, but when one vritti becomes predominant, it narrows down the mind. Anger is a vritti. If anger is predominant, it will subdue all other vrittis and will be highlighted. It will dominate the mental, sensorial, and cerebral behavior, thoughts, responses, and actions. Fear is a vritti. When it overpowers the other less powerful vrittis, the state of fear dominates your mentality, behavior, and performance. This should sound familiar because just a few days ago, I went over this book, Power versus Force, remember? And in this book, we made it to a chart. And in that chart, we saw the different levels of human consciousness, right? All this stuff is related. I don't do nothing random and for no point, right? So we got fear, anger, guilt, shame, apathy, grief. And remember, as we talked, a person who is operating from one of these levels literally cannot see beyond that level. This colors their experience. And as long as they're in these negative levels, they're self-destructive and they cannot expand. So when you're trying to talk to somebody about spiritual growth and things like that, they can't really hear it because they don't have enough energy to receive that message. They're stuck dealing with their personal shame, which covers their whole life. They're stuck with their guilt, their apathy, their fear, right? I know you've met somebody who's fear-based. I remember I had a friend who was very fear-based, and her sister and her sister's not husband, but baby daddy, were getting into like some kind of fight, and it got a little bit physical, and the cops were called. And this, her sister, who really had nothing to do with it, she's so fear-based that she started getting into a panic attack, freaking out. It had nothing to do with her, but she was so upset, because that fear kicked in. She was stuck in her own head dealing with her own fears, not even aware of what else was going on. That's how people get whenever their very thin, very fragile mask of sanity is disturbed. These levels that a person resonates at begins to shine through, right? They say you don't really know a person until you get involved in some kind of stressful situation like that. That's why they say that, because when that mask is taken away, the mask of sanity, the mask of civilization, when that's taken off, when a person is really tested, you see what level that they live at, right? Some people are stuck here, stuck here. We've known angry people. But anyways, like I said, we went over this already. Power versus Force. Amazing book. But those are vrittis. Those are powerful vrittis that these people are stuck within. Aset Aja. Good evening. Good evening. Yes, yes. Okay, let's keep going. So that's why I highlighted that, because that was very, very important. There may be many vrittis, like we saw, but when one vritti becomes predominant, it narrows down the mind. Anger is a vritti. If anger is predominant, it will subdue all other vrittis and will be highlighted. It will dominate the mental, sensorial, and cerebral behavior, thoughts, and responses and actions. Fear is a vritti. When it overpowers the other less powerful vrittis, the state of fear dominates your mentality, behavior, and performance. We've seen that, and we continue to see it. It's not about judging people. It's more about understanding where these people are coming from and how they operate. The more that you know the playing field, the better moves you can make. The more you understand the chessboard, the more you understand the pieces on the board and how the pieces move, you can strategize a lot better, right? So this isn't just about understanding yourself. It's also about understanding the people in your life, right? Because if you don't understand the people in your life, you're going to hurt yourself and make yourself upset trying to force people to behave a certain way and getting upset when they're not doing that, right? So understand, when certain vrittis are more powerful than the others, they overpower the others, right? Wu got it. Greetings. Austin Awalt says, funny how the news feeds the vrittis. Exactly. That's why it's called mind control, because it keeps people in the states that they're in. If you know how to really listen to the messages and read through the lines, this is why I don't watch the news, because I don't need that stuff in my head. But when I do, I can clearly see what's going on. Certain messages and wordings are meant to stand out to certain people in certain levels. You all have seen those well, maybe you haven't, but there's compilations on YouTube that shows all these different news channels literally saying the same words, the same phrases, the same scripts. I'm talking about news channels across the country. They'll report on a story and they'll say the exact same words. There's a reason for that, because those words are tested, tried, and true to trigger specific states of mind in people. It's mass hypnosis, right? So you got, it helps when you're aware of yourself and your vrittis, right? Because the only reason all that stuff works is because people are already resonating in these lower levels. Let's continue though. The more engrossed and involved you become in a vritti, the narrower your mental perceptions and faculties, right? The more engrossed and involved you become in a vritti, the narrower your mental perceptions and faculties. This in turn makes you more material and gross, external and extroverted. You are caught in the vortex of a vritti, which sucks you in. Yoga says that vrittis have to be managed, not eradicated. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Right? That's the second verse in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, remember? Mobi, peace, peace. Good to see you. Okay, so remember, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. If you don't have it already, this is, a staple in the library, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And soon, eventually, I'm going to go ahead and read that second verse. Not right now, though. But yeah, basically that second verse talks about how the restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. That's what yoga is. The restraint of the modification of the mind. What are the modifications of the mind? They're the vrittis. Vritti means modification, right? Chitta is the mind stuff. Vrittis happen in the chitta. So the restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. And what he's saying right here is yoga says that the vrittis have to be managed, not eradicated. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Management of the vrittis is yoga. That's what yoga is. That's what yoga is. Not so much about stretching and poses and stuff. It's about managing the mind, literally managing the vrittis. That's what yoga is all about. Now you can do it through different ways, different channels, right? That's why there's 8 different branches of yoga. But essentially, yoga is the management of the mind, okay? And if you don't have the maturity to do that, if you're a minor by the law, and you don't have the maturity to do that, then that's what the government is for. The government is here to do that for you. And if you let the government manage your mind, well, just, turn on the news and you'll see how they manage the masses. It's not wrong. It's not bad. It doesn't need to be torn down. That's just how this thing works. Now, you specifically, personally, can liberate yourself from that. But as far as the masses, it's a lot like children and parents, essentially people who control themselves are under the parenthood of the government, so they can choose to do what they want with their children. It's their right to do that. All right, if they want to modify everyone chemically, then that's what they'll choose to do. If you're, if you don't have your own sovereignty, and I don't just mean legally, I just mean like even within yourself, then you will be subject to that. But anyways, let's continue. Management of the mind stuff is yoga, not stoppage of the vrittis. If you stop the vrittis, there is no reason to live. You may as well leave this body, mind in existence. As long as you possess a body, you are bound by vrittis. As long as you move in this world, you are guided by vrittis. The entire context of life is connected with vrittis. Thus, it is said that anyone who enters this world enters into the maze of vrittis and forgets their real nature, loses clarity, discrimination, and wisdom, and acts upon the vrittis. This is the path of Pravritti. Just as a house is built of bricks and cement, life and the world are built up of vrittis. Therefore, no one can be free of vrittis, and you should not even wish so. The only effort you need to make is to become free of the vrittis that cause downfall and bondage, and cultivate those that uplift. Therefore, it is not stopping the vrittis that yoga aspires for, but managing the vrittis. Okay? Managing the vrittis is the goal. When you're driving along a road and there are bumps, holes, and rocks, you continue to drive, but carefully. You do not oppose or resist the bumpy road. The journey does not stop in spite of the road. As the road becomes more difficult and constricted, you become more alert and try to complete the journey with greater awareness. When the road is clear, you accelerate in fourth gear. The same principle needs to be applied to the mind. When there is some kind of spike in the mind, whether due to anxiety or joy, you have to become aware of everything in and around and take the car forward slowly. The anxiety, sorrows, and joys are the bumps. You go up, go down, and come up again. Therefore, you need to drive your mind in life the way you drive a car on a bumpy road. You have to know the reason why vrittis are created within you and how they connect you with the world of senses and sense objects and remain free from their influence, which dilutes the clarity, strength, and positive qualities of the mind. In the path of Pravritti, you are simply following the trail of vrittis and lose the ability to exercise sanyam, restraint, and Anushasana, discipline. Life is marked by the absence of restraint and discipline. I like that analogy. So life is like driving down a road, right? And when you're driving and the road is clear and fine, you can speed up, do what you got to do. But when you know that there's bumps in the road and potholes and stuff like that, you start to drive a little bit carefully because you don't want to screw up your tires and all that stuff. You don't want to screw up your machine. So you take it a bit slow. That's what we have going on here. Your emotional spikes, right? Because you know how we talk about that's what the news does. It triggers your emotional spikes. That's what life does. Your situations and relationships with people who try to manipulate you, people who are upset and have their own agenda and all these different things. They always aim for the emotions because that's what moves us. That's how we're created, right? So what we want to do here is be aware of how this thing works. It's not about trying to find enemies and trying to cancel this, that, and the third. It's just about being aware of how reality works. Okay? So check out what it says here. I highlighted this. You have to know the reason why vrittis are created within you and how they connect you with the world of senses and sense objects and remain free from their influences, which dilutes the clarity, strength, and positive qualities of the mind. So one, you have to know the reason why vrittis are created within you. You got to know the reason why. And that's what we're learning here, the reason why these mental modifications are created. Number two, you have to know how they connect you with the world of senses and sense objects, right? So, yes, we're learning how vrittis are created, and now we're learning how they connect you with the world of senses. Because you're not the body, you're using the body to connect with this world of senses. And our usage of the body is made a little bit easier through these vrittis. All right, and three, you want to remain free from their influence. They exist, but as much as you can reduce their influence, that's called non-attachment, right? We talk about non-attachment. Non-attachment isn't running from your problems and pretending like things don't hurt. Non-attachment isn't being cold and apathetic to people. Non-attachment is remaining free from the influence of these mental modifications. That's what non-attachment is. That's what, what's the word? Vairagya represents. It's not about pretending life doesn't hurt. It's not about being cold and apathetic. It's learning how to become free from the influence of emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation that's done to you from other people and done to yourself because you do a heavy amount of mental manipulation, emotional manipulation, right? Keep it real. And that emotional influence, it dilutes the clarity, the strength, and the positive qualities of the mind, right? So understanding all this science does nothing but help you, it helps you have a much more pleasant and clear experience here. Let's continue. In the path of Pravritti, you are simply following the trail of vrittis. Okay, so I already read that. Let's go to this next portion. Black Knight asks, could the Vrittis act as an egregore at certain times? Absolutely. One may even say that an egregore could be seen as a bodiless Vritti, a Vritti that isn't attached to a specific person, a Vritti that has a life of its own, a Vritti that makes ripples not just in your mind, but in the minds of those around you. At that point, it actually would be categorized as something a little different, but to answer your question, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Zahir Anu, peace, peace. Again, if you guys are enjoying this, please go ahead and hit that like button. Because, as I say every time, this lets YouTube know that this content is worth watching, worth sharing, and worth, putting up on that news feed. So, whims of indiscipline. Let's check this out. Whims of indiscipline. Thank you, Wu. Got it? If you look at your life objectively, at how you live, you will discover that there is no system. Yeah. You are only following the whims of the mind. There is no structure, regularity, system, or discipline. Everyone is following the whims of their mind. I want to sleep at this time. I want to get up at this time. I want to eat this. I don't like this. I like that. I want to associate with this person. That person is my enemy. I have my own needs, my own ambitions. That is your world. Your world is the whimsical nature of your own self. Likes and dislikes, jealousy, anger, hatred, and greed are all whims of the mind. If you want to wear what you want to wear today is a whim of the mind. What you want to eat today is a whim of the mind. And the nature of a whim is expressing itself to impress others. That sounds hella familiar, don't it? That sounds like life. I highlighted this part. You are always seeking to impress others so that you are recognized as somebody special. This is everyone's quest. Recognition. Friendship, companionship, and recognition are the three things the society gives and every individual looks for in a society. They only fulfill the whims of the mind. This is how you have been living. Getting close to home here. Don't run away. Don't run away. This is important. There is no structure in your life. Today, you sleep at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock. On another day, you party the whole night and sleep during the day. Another day, you splurge on things that are totally unnecessary to your survival. You do not care when you rise, when you sleep, when you eat, when you work. You do everything based on your whims. If you feel like it, you may do something. If you don't feel like it, you won't. If the thought comes into your mind, you will go by it. If a thought comes, don't do it, you won't do it. This means that you simply follow whatever the mind says. If the mind calls something good, you will agree. If it calls something bad, you will accept that. When you cannot discriminate between good and bad and do not have any choice in the matter, it means that you are stuck in a vritti and are being sucked deeper into it. You are creating associations based on your mind of like and dislike, acceptance and rejection. You develop your own identity and idea of what is appropriate and inappropriate. Each idea, each behavior is being guided by a particular vritti. In a life where there is absolutely no structure, no system, no discipline, in which you are always moving in the direction of the sensory pleasures and fulfillment, how can you develop balance? Wild. Wild. So check this out. I highlighted this part. Tony Martinez, peace, my friend. Peace, peace, peace. Mr. Think Outside the Box. Check this out. I highlighted this. You know and understand many things, but cannot put them into practice. Why? Due to vrittis. which influence you because you identify with the world and are connected with the world. The stronger this connection, the further you move away from sanyam, Anushasana, peace and balance. That's why you are not doing the things you want to do. You got these ideas, you got these plans, you got these hopes and these dreams, but the day passes and you have done nothing to move closer towards it. And you get upset, you get angry, and there's no one to blame. So you might make something up. You might blame somebody who's completely unrelated. You might even blame yourself and beat yourself up, thinking that this tough love is going to help you do it. Not understanding that none of that stuff is the solution. The solution is to identify what's happening and fix it at the root level. So here we can see why this science is so important, because without it, we're damn near hopeless. Without this science and this kind of knowledge and information here, we're damn near hopeless, right? Now, this is not a religion. This is literally a science of mind. Everything here is provable by your experience. So let's continue. Sri Swamiji often says the nature of the mind is like that of a monkey. A monkey can never sit still. It will climb a tree, pluck a fruit, take one bite, and throw it away. It will always jump from one tree to another, picking fruit after fruit without eating any one fruit fully. In the same way, you keep running after different desires in order to attain them. You advance a little in your attempt, and then doubt arises. Will I be able to finish this task? And you are unable to accomplish it and regress. The human mind is like a monkey because it's caught in the circles of vrittis. You see what I'm saying? This is not about something that you have to believe and you got to trust somebody. No, like all this is proved by your day-to-day experience. Your mind is like a monkey jumping from branch to branch. That's why we call it monkey mind. Thank you, Uppity Unicorn. Monkey mind. Jumping from branch to branch, picking a piece of fruit, taking a bite, throwing it, and then grabbing the next piece of fruit. We do that every single day. We pick up something, take a bite, and throw it down. Hopefully not literally, but figuratively, metaphorically. We start something, don't finish it. We pick a piece of it up, throw it away, move on to the next. We doubt ourselves right in the middle of it and give up halfway through. Like, this is our experience. This is our experience. And it's caused by the types of vrittis that we're dealing with. Now, speaking of types of vrittis, check out this next paragraph. There are two kinds of vrittis, joyful and painful. Don't that sound like how I always say we run towards pleasure and run away from pain? That's the base operating system of your human mind, and this is proving it. This is the base operating system of your human mind, running towards pleasure and running away from pain. Now we get to see the science of how that works exactly. Check it out. There are two kinds of vrittis, joyful and painful. A joyous circumstance gives birth to a joyous vritti, and a painful circumstance gives birth to a painful vritti. Even when you experience joy, there is no balance or restraint in it. The same is true of pain. You are dragged by the force of both currents. Dragged, y'all. You are dragged by it. Talking about free will. I got free will. Do you? Do you have free will? Not if you're completely unaware of how your mind works, you don't have free will. Let's continue. The path of Pravritti is the path of the world. It is the path of agitation, chaos, and confusion. This is the path where you connect with the senses and desire the pleasures of the senses. Every person is desirous of sense pleasure. Everyone tries to please the mind at the material level. If there is any problem in life, in your body, in society, house, or family, you become engrossed in that problem. Becoming engrossed means that you move away from peace and balance and live only through that experience. Shoot, why didn't I highlight that part? Where is my highlighter? Good question. What the hell is it? Give me a sec. I'm gonna grab my highlighter. Oh, there it is. Right next to me the whole time. That's how it usually works. Okay, so I was going to highlight this part about becoming engrossed. Becoming engrossed means that you move away from peace and balance and live only through that experience. And we see that, like I mentioned about the girl that I know, and her sister's baby daddy got into like a fist fight, and this girl got engrossed in her fear, hearing the police sirens, seeing the fight and everything, so freaked out that she literally became unable to do anything. She was so locked and went into a panic attack that she had to, be helped like a grown-up would help a child having a temper tantrum, right? That's an example of somebody becoming engrossed and living only through that experience. And what actually happened was this person more than likely had some past memory triggered, right? The if you're sitting there and you're witnessing violence and you go into a panic attack, more than likely something happened in her past and that situation triggered that memory and she went into some type of a relapse, some type of a flashback, and she was reliving the whole thing over again, right? That's a vritti. That's a mental modification. That's a ripple in the pond of the mind. And I'm not making fun of her because this happens to so many different people and happens to many of us unaware. We see something and we're reminded of a memory, and that changes our entire state. Like, this is literally how the mind works. You don't just go about your life in total control. You look at something, you hear something, and you're put into a state. This is why, and I just so happen to have one of my favorite psychology books here in front of me, and I use this quote all the time, and I'm actually about to read it because I have it in front of me here, and it's about trance. It's about trance states, right? As soon as I find it, yeah. Mr. Bandler says people are not simply in and out of trance, but we are moving from one trance to another. Basically saying that we're always in a trance at all times. We're never not in a trance. We're just moving through different trances, right? That's what happens with our minds. And depending on what we're experiencing, different things can and do trigger different vrittis, different trance states. So this isn't about removing them. This is about managing them properly, reducing their impact on us. Let's continue. You go on experiencing that situation internally, either congratulating yourself or cursing yourself because of it. If there's happiness, you congratulate yourself. If there's pain, you curse yourself. These are the vrittis of the world, and you live by them. You live them. Every day you live, lust, anger, envy, hatred, like, dislike. Is anyone free of them? This indicates that you are caught up in the world, that you are only involved in conducting your dealings with the world. Where there is lack of restraint and discipline, you cannot attain peace and happiness. I highlighted that. I'll read it again. Where there is lack of restraint and discipline, you cannot attain peace and happiness. Instead, you have to face anarchy and disorder, whether outside or inside. Right? So, I mentioned I still get messages and DMs from people that's like, Trav, you used to be talking about demons and stuff. Why are you talking about yoga? Like, what happened? What happened? Well, here's the thing. Like, it doesn't matter what you study. What matters is the operator, right? I could switch right now and just talk about the Bible. I could literally just do the Bible and I could still make shit happen. I could still make stuff happen. I can still pull out the power, pull out the education, pull out the gems. Because it's not necessarily about the path that you're on. It's about the person on that path. And if you lack restraint and discipline, you don't have any peace and happiness. Most people have anarchy and disorder. Anarchy and disorder, and they try to dress that up as, dark side, chaos magic. It's not chaos magic. You just have anarchy and disorder. and eventually that catches up with you, right? With this science, it doesn't matter what direction you go. If you're centered, and you're balanced, you can do whatever you want. Peace and power go hand in hand. Power does not come from being imbalanced and full of disorder. Matthew Watson, peace, peace. Tisha 333, peace. Okay. Material life, which is represented by the objects and desires of the world, inspires you to live a certain kind of lifestyle, a normal lifestyle which you live at home. Just observe the situation in your own house. When do people go to sleep and wake up? What do they eat and not eat? What do they wear and not wear? What desires do they express? What kind of hatred and love do they carry within? If you look at your own family members, you will see the full force of materialism. One person says, I don't like this. Another person says, I like that very much. The material world is dictating their behavior, thought, and mentality completely. I highlighted this part. The material world is dictating their behavior, thought, and mentality completely. Like and dislike are manifestations of the world. Wanting to wear good clothes, eating good food, living a good life, all these are dictates of the world. These are the images of the world reflected by your mind in the forms of your whims and desires. All right? So we've made clear just now how we are very much in bondage to these out of control vrittis, and how our lack of discipline leads us to jumping to and fro, chasing pleasure, running away from pain with the monkey mind in full effect. Right? So the monkey mind actually goes deeper from just being distracted and thinking about something, then thinking about something else. The monkey mind goes as deep as why you do everything you do. I like this. I don't like this. I want to wear this name brand. I want to eat this name brand, not this other name brand. All that comes from different vrittis, from different mental modifications, right? So now let's look at lessening the intensity of vrittis, all right? Let me know in the chat if you guys are, if you're understanding this, if you're digging this, if this is, something that you feel is important or not. If you don't see the importance in this, let me know that as well. So just give me some feedback here so I can see where you are. Lessening intensity of vrittis. From the yogic perspective, in order to develop balance, you have to cultivate discipline and restraint in life. Restraint plus discipline equals sadhana. All right, you'll see this word a lot, sadhana. That means your spiritual practice, right? So what he just said here was, from the yogic perspective, in order to develop balance, you have to cultivate discipline and restraint in life. Restraint plus discipline equals sadhana, your spiritual practice. Sadhana does not mean performing postures or practicing meditation. They are methods and tools that you can use to create a change within your nature, character, and life. The tool can be pranayama, which is, like the breathing, asana, which is the postures, meditation, pratyahara, dharana, mantra, and so on, right? All those are tools, right? This is good. This is good. Okay, cool. Thank you guys for responding in the chat. Thank you. So I can see that you are with me and following along and enjoying this content. Cool. So like he said here, these are all tools. These are and we've been over all these tools on my channel and what a lot of you guys are reading on your own. We've been through all this. All right, the tools are pranayama, asana, meditation, pratyahara, dharana, mantra, and so on. They are not sadhanas. They are tools which are used in order to acquire discipline, create a structure, and learn restraint in life. So all those are tools, but that's not the actual spiritual practice. We use those tools so that we can acquire a discipline and create a structure and learn restraint. So we use those to find our actual spiritual path and spiritual practice. So it isn't just the meditation. It isn't just sensory withdrawal and visualization. It's just concentration. It isn't just the mantras. It isn't just the breathing exercises. It isn't just eating vegan or whatever. All those things add to it. What matters is the discipline and the structure that we are using. In the material, extroverted or external dimension, the qualities that emerge are tamasic and rajasic, not sattvic. Now remember, a few days ago, we talked about vrittis in this bigger book, Awakening the Life Force, and there was a part that talked about the different gunas, and I went over that. Remember, we talked about these gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Remember, we talked about how each one of them create their own types of vrittis, right? Sattva creates peaceful, illuminated, harmonious vrittis. Rajas, which is passion, Rajas creates restless, agitated, craving vrittis. And then tamas, which is stupidity, slowness and gravity, density, that creates delusion and dullness and stupid vrittis, right? So those are the three. Generator, operator, destroyer, right? Remember, I went over all this. Rajas is passion. Tamas is like decay and darkness and stupidity. Sattva is harmony and balance, and we use sattva to rise beyond it. Can't rise beyond it with rajas, cannot rise beyond it with tamas. All right, this is death, this is wild activity, and this is harmony up here. Okay? Okay. So with that being said, so in the material, extroverted, or external dimension, the physical plane that we're in, right? The qualities that emerge are tamasic and rajasic. Remember, tamasic is stupidity and darkness. Rajas is passion and wild action. So the qualities that emerge are tamasic and rajasic, not sattvic, not harmonious, not balanced. A human being does not hold sattva in life. If you think you have sattva, you are grossly mistaken. There is no scope for sattva in your life, as you are caught in the pulls of vrittis. There are people who wish to see God, who wish to experience the divine nature, but they are unable to relate in a good, positive, or healthy way with those around them. Can such a person ever be a devotee? Never. If you cannot manage your behavior, forget about God. Damn, Swami Niranjanananda is he's keeping it real. If you cannot manage your behavior, forget about God. If you cannot manage your own responses of vrittis, forget about peace and shanti. Right? That is the truth that you ignore and hide away from. If you cannot treat your fellow human being who is sitting beside you with a smile, happiness, and joy, then don't have any expectation of being a devotee or experiencing the divine nature in your life. This is why compassion is so important, right? This is why compassion is so important. This is why it's not about, this is why you have to come to peace within yourself before really moving forward. Because if you're still holding hatred in your heart for people, if you're still holding revenge and disgust and like all these negative feelings toward other human beings, that's going to be a weight that holds you down from evolution. That's going to be an anchor to you if you're still holding negative feelings towards other people. That's attachment. That's still attachment. And as the good Swami said here, If you cannot manage your behavior, forget about God. If you cannot manage your own responses of vrittis, right? You get triggered and you can't control yourself. That has to be settled. That has to be managed, right? The gunas of tamas and rajas guide the pravritti path. Sattva guna does not guide the pravritti path, it guides the nivritti path. As you become more entangled in vrittis, the tamasic qualities manifest. Remember, tamasic had to do with the stupid, dense, dark gravity. As you become more entangled in the vrittis, the tamasic qualities manifest. As you develop more vrittis, the rajasic qualities manifest. So remember, rajas has to do with wild activity, with passion, with a lot of movement, right? So as you become more entangled in vrittis, the tamasic qualities manifest. As you develop more vrittis, the rajasic qualities manifest. Okay, so just to distinguish between those two, as you get deeper and more entangled in specific vrittis, you get heavier and heavier and denser and stupider, more closed-minded, right? You've seen people like this. But he says as you develop more vritti, so there's more to, this is the monkey mind here, right? Rajasic nature, that's the monkey mind. As you develop more, so now you're bouncing around to and fro, left and right, all these different ones. When tamas and rajas are predominant, your behavior and mind are also rajasic and tamasic, aggressive, manipulative, seeking power, trying to control and manipulate, trying to project yourself. If there is a threat to any condition of your security, these qualities become active, right? A threat to your security triggers these qualities to become active. I've talked with plenty of people who, we're all cool and everybody's on the same page, but when they sense some kind of threat to their condition or security, even if it's a perceived threat, even if it's not an actual threat, everything we talked about goes out the window, and now they're back in their animal mode. Right? Again, like I said before, you really see who you're dealing with when it comes to a moment of like stress, when it comes to a moment where that thin, fragile, frail mask of civilization comes off of a person, then you see who they really are. Your lifestyle in society influenced by vrittis is rajasic and tamasic. When the lifestyle is rajasic, desire after desire takes birth in the mind. You think of name and fame as the basis of life. Recognition by another person becomes the basis of your life. Social media. If you do a good job and another person does not even look at it, you feel, I did such a splendid job and it was not even recognized. This is the result of a rajasic lifestyle. In the tamasic lifestyle, you do not want to come out of the condition in which you feel secure. We see that a lot with so many different people. Let me read that again, and I want you to think about somebody in your life who's here. In the tamasic lifestyle, you do not want to come out of the condition in which you feel secure. Curtis Lugalia, greetings. Greetings in Nairobi, Kenya. Interesting. So let's continue here. Let's continue reading. In a tamasic lifestyle, people do not want to come out of the condition in which they feel secure. Jaren, greetings. You behave like a frog in a well. You do not search for any change or the possibility of becoming better. You say, I am happy as I am. In the Pravritti path, you oscillate between rajas and tamas. Your lifestyle is inspired by the conditions of these two gunas. Desires, karmas, and thoughts are born, but they are all connected with transitory pleasure and not with searching for the inner spirit. The Pravritti path is the worldly path in which there is no restraint or discipline, system, or peace. It is empty. Let us ask those who have completed 50 orbits around the sun. Has there been any change in the ambitions and desires that you had when you were 25 compared to now? Many will say no, and some will say yes. The reply will be based on how you view life or your expectations from life. If you have had many expectations and desires and wanted to achieve a lot at the material level, whether name, fame, or prosperity, you will say no, there is no difference. You'll have the same drive and motivation to achieve what you did at 25. Some people will say, yes, there has been a decrease. They are those who have taken the beatings of life and have come to an understanding of what is appropriate and inappropriate for them, and how to go towards one and avoid the other. Such people are able to say, yes, there is a difference between 25 and 50. There is a difference in the intellect, thinking, understanding, expectations, and ambitions. Nevertheless, both kinds of people are walking the Pravritti path. Everyone in this world is walking the Pravritti path. Therefore, you have to ask how you can continue to walk it, yet cultivate positivity and sattva. You have to find out how you can free yourself from the rajasik and tamasic vrittis and make room for sattvic vrittis in your life. You need to think about how the state of tamas and rajas in the Pravritti path can be transformed into a state of sattva. You live in a society and the world. You have your job or profession. You have your family. They all have their own expectations, beliefs, and thinking. You also have your own behavior and personality to contend with. Taking them all into consideration, how can you take your life towards sattva? That's the question. That's the question, and that's what we are looking to figure out here, right? So what we just talked about here so far is that most people are stuck in a tamasic or a rajasic state, right? To rajasic, jumping to and fro, activity, passion, moving, unsatisfied. Tamasic is the opposite. It's death, decay, getting more and more rigid, more and more solid, more and more stuck, more and more dense. Like you said, the Tamasic person is somebody who has been beat up by life. They know what makes them feel good, what makes them feel bad, and they start to avoid pain very, very intensely and stick to what causes pleasure. And this causes density. People get comfortable and they avoid things that might rock the boat. Let's continue. The wise people have provided a sutra. They say there are 24 hours in a day. Give 23 to the world and keep one for your own upliftment. In those 23 hours, do whatever you have to in the world, but keep that 1 hour for self-observation and decide upon a sadhana which you will practice during that period. If you can do this, then despite walking the Pravritti path, you will be able to create a sattvic way of thinking, behavior, and attitude. That will be the biggest achievement of your Pravritti life. You see that? You see that? So it's not about, oh, spend 1 hour worshiping God, spend 1 hour doing this, that, and the third. No, spend 1 hour working on yourself, observing yourself. Self-observation is what he said right here. Self-observation, and decide upon a sadhana. Decide if you're going to meditate or do postures or do mantras, or what are you going to do to take some time to go within and become aware of these ripples that affect your life, right? How much time do you take in your day to sit down and really do some self-analysis and see just how deeply this stuff impacts you? It's not about any god or worshiping anybody or anything. This is about looking in the mirror of your third eye, right? That's what makes this a science, because it is analyzation and observation of the natural world. And what more natural world than the one that you exist in your head? I am for real. The Sattvic quality is an attempt to gradually transform and transmute the negative effects of tamas and rajas, and that is possible when sadhana is incorporated into one's life. We've talked about mental transmutation, right? We talked about that. Let me read that again. The Sattvic quality is an attempt to gradually transform and transmute the negative effects of tamas and rajas, and that is possible when sadhana is incorporated into one's life. The seers and yogis have said that yes, it is possible to lessen the intensity of the tamasic and rajasic qualities in life, and to do so, you have to go through different processes of sadhana. The first being learning restraint and cultivating discipline. There's that duo again, restraint and discipline. I highlighted this part. If there is no sadhana, restraint, discipline, or proper application of the tools, sattva cannot come into your life. Eon, peace. All right, so let's talk about the three levels of restraint, because he says here that restraint and discipline are highly necessary. Restraint and discipline. So let's talk about the three levels of restraint, okay? This is important. I hope that you have the book, and I hope that you're able to highlight this as well. If not, it wouldn't be a bad idea to get your unicorn pen out and start taking some notes, because this is stuff that you can reflect on and be aware of within your own mind and see where you can work, see what you can do to improve your situation. Because if you just take a few months, a few weeks of focusing on this stuff, you are going to change your life in a positive way so drastically that you could not have done without this information. So you owe it to yourself to take some of this information to heart. Take some notes, write down keywords maybe that you can go look up yourself later on, but take some kind of action right now. Do something for yourself, take some action. So let's talk about the three levels of restraint. The tradition says that restraint has to be observed on three levels, okay? The first is sensorial restraint. The second is speech restraint. I like that one. The third is mind restraint. I like that one even better. Speech restraint, right? Right here, we're going to talk about speech restraint. Check it out. Speech is the medium through which interaction is conducted. It reflects the state and condition of the mind. If the mind is negative, the speech will be negative. If the mind is positive, the speech will be positive. Speech is a reflection of whatever you experience in the mind. Very key. The Bible says, out of an abundance of the heart overfloweth through the mouth, or something like that. Out of the mouth flows the abundance of the heart. Basically, the stuff that's on your heart will come out of your mouth. The stuff that comes out of your mouth is the stuff that's dwelling in your heart. What Swami Niranjan Ananda Saraswati says here in his book, speech is a reflection of whatever you experience in the mind. I highlighted that. If you are mentally disturbed or agitated, that will be evident in your speech. Speech is a reflection of mental behavior. It is a gross expression of the subtle mental state. Again, speech is a reflection of mental behavior. It is a gross expression of the subtle mental state. Right? Those of you who are mature enough understand that people don't just say stuff on accident. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say. No, words don't just come out like that if they're not there already. Right? So little side comments, little remarks, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Those are usually things that have been inside somebody, and usually when you get caught, you feel bad when it comes out, right? But understand, the stuff that comes out of your mouth and the mouth of other people, it's a gross expression of the subtle mental state, right? Understand that. In order to manage mental behavior through speech, it is said that speech has to be truthful as well as pleasant. Truthful and pleasant. Make your speech truthful and pleasant. People love growling at each other. To cultivate pleasant speech, remember not to growl at anybody. Pleasant speech means that your words should not harm or disturb the mind of the person to whom they are addressed. There is a story of a king who wanted to know his future. He gave his birth chart to an astrologer and said, "Tell me what you see in it." The astrologer looked at the chart and thought to himself, "This is a very bad chart." He said to the king, "O king, in your chart, I see the death and destruction of your empire. I see the death and destruction of your kith and kin. I see the decline of your empire." The king was furious. He said, "How dare you say all this? I am at the peak of my power, and you are predicting the destruction of my entire clan, the decline of my empire. Throw this astrologer in jail." The astrologer was put in jail. LOL. The king now called another astrologer. The second man also saw the same future in the chart, but he knew what had happened to his predecessor. He thought about it and said, "O king, I have never seen a chart like yours. This is the best chart I've ever seen. You will outlive everyone. You have a very long life. You will outlive your grandsons." Yikes. The king was delighted to hear this and gave bountiful rewards to the second astrologer. Now, this man had said the same thing as the first astrologer, but in a different way. The first one said, "I see death and destruction," and was put in prison. The second one said, "I see longevity," and was rewarded. Both said the same thing, but the language used was different. I want y'all to understand one of the things before you're done dealing with me is the importance of the language used. Most of us get so hung up on doing what we want to do, but when you're dealing with other people, you got to understand the language. If you want to communicate with somebody, understand that the language is important. I want you to think about this for yourself. Is it more important to say what you want to say, or is it more important to get your point across? Right? Is it more important to say what you want to say, or is it more important to get the point across? Remember that next time you find yourself in an argument, or you find yourself dealing with somebody and you have an opportunity to manage your language properly. Just a thought. Both said the same thing, but the language used was different. That is the effect of vani, speech. You experience this every day. If somebody abuses you, how do you react? If somebody praises you, how do you react? A stranger can come up to you and say, "You are wonderful," and you will feel happy. A stranger can come up to you and say, "You are hopeless, you are ugly, you are horrible," and you will descend into a depression. That is the power of speech. That is the effect speech can have on the mind. It is not that only the words of your friends will make an impact on you, even the words of strangers have an effect. Is that not true? Is that not true? Even the words of strangers have an effect, right? So the way to acquire speech, sanyam, is to cultivate the two qualities of pleasantness and truthfulness. Pleasantness and truthfulness. Pleasantness, priyata, and truthfulness, satyata, are the tools which one can use to acquire vani sanyam, or speech restraint. It is a sadhana applicable to everyone. Try it, and you will be the winner. In normal, day-to-day situations, apply restraint of speech in every interaction. In the ashram, Mauna is practiced at certain times. Some people believe that Mauna means not to speak at all. That is one way to start off the journey of Mauna. However, the word Mauna does not actually mean silence. It means measured speech. I love that. That is the literal definition. It is derived from the root mapa, which means to measure. But as you don't know how to measure your speech, it is better to zip up the lips and remain silent. After all, what do you speak about? Uh-oh, here we go. Most people, here we go. Most of the time, you only indulge in gossip and criticism, all negative expressions. You only try to satisfy your sensory cravings through speech. Such speech has no power or meaning. Analyze the sentences that you speak every day. Pay attention to this, and please do this, because this will help you immensely if you have the maturity to do it. A lot of people don't have the maturity to do this. Check this out. Such speech has no power or meaning. Analyze the sentences that you speak every day. How many are worthwhile and how many are absolutely useless, critical, and gossipy in nature? Undertake an objective analysis of your own speech, and you will be surprised. I highlighted this because this is one of the most important lines in this whole book, I think, and I wish that, if nothing else, keep this in mind. Maybe out of 100 sentences, 10 were necessary, and the remaining 90 were useless. Not everyone is capable of knowing what appropriate speech is. Therefore, the practice of measured speech must begin with absolute silence. When you have been a bit observant and are able to observe and filter the essence of your thoughts and convert them into speech, you can begin to practice measured speech. You know, I've got a book about that. If you have a problem with talking too much and you want to be able to get your point across and you know that you talk way too damn much, this is a helpful book. It's called Say It in 6, right? This is a good way to say exactly what you mean in 6 minutes or less. It's by a guy named Ron Hoff. If that's a problem that you have and you're mature enough to admit it and you might want to work on that, I found this book pretty useful on that subject matter. But you don't have to have a book to do measured speech. You just have to become aware of the things that actually come out of your mouth. Like he says here, 90% of what you say is probably useless and powerless, because most people sit around and they gossip or they criticize or they just, run off the top about nothing. If you become aware of that, you can start to manage that, and that alone can start to cause positive improvements in your life, because your words are extremely important, right? Even better than just doing affirmations all day, even better is to manage the speech that you're already doing all day long, right? If you can stop gossiping about people, if you can stop talking shit about people, if you can stop being negative, like, that alone will start to cause a massive improvement in your mental health, your mental atmosphere, right? Because the way that we see the world is often a reflection of how we see ourselves. And if you spend a lot of your time being critical of people, gossiping and talking down and bad about people, to some degree, you apply that to yourself, right? Alicia M., greetings. So just keep that in mind. This is difficult for a lot of people. I understand that, but it could be extremely helpful in ways that you might not have predicted. So, not everyone is capable of knowing what appropriate speech is. Therefore, their practice of measured speech must begin with absolute silence. When you have been a bit observant and are able to observe and filter the essence of your thoughts and convert them into speech, you can begin to practice measured speech. That's a good way to put it. When you've been a bit observant and you're able to observe and filter the essence of your thoughts. So your thoughts have an essence, right? There's an essence, but oftentimes most people have trouble getting to the essence, so they use a lot of words to try to explain that essence, right? They use a lot of words to try that. But when you're observant and you're able to observe and filter the essence of your thoughts, then you convert that into speech. You can say what you mean to say in less words. That's something that I definitely actively practice every time I open my mouth, even when I'm talking to myself. I try to get to the point and I try to say what it is that I mean to say with as little words as I can possibly do. I love being able to save time, to save effort, because it takes energy to process. It takes energy to process. So it's better to get to the point if that's the point. I know that some people just like to talk just because they want to hear their voice, and you can tell. Or some people just like to listen, and that's fine too. But in this, what we're dealing with, management of the mind and management of the vrittis, it is very good practice to get to the essence of what you're feeling and thinking, and get to the point when you convert that feeling and thinking into language. I love it because this also ties into the stuff that I read about body language and interrogation and all that other stuff. Oftentimes people are just so insecure and unstable that if you sit them down long enough, they'll just tell on themselves. But anyways, let's continue. When you edit a book, certain words and sentences are crossed out and others are added. You go on editing a sentence until you are satisfied that it conveys the right meaning. In the same way, you have to edit what you speak. Before speaking, edit what you're about to say. That is Mauna, and that is measured speech. In this process of editing, bring in the component of satyata, truthfulness, and priyata, pleasantness. In this way, Vani Sanyam can be practiced at any time, in any interaction or communication. So not only is it good practice to get straight to the essence of what you're trying to say, but also when it comes to the editing process, you want to be truthful and you want to be pleasant. Another aspect of speech restraint is clarity of speech. Clarity is a huge thing. Think whether the person you are addressing is able to understand what you're saying. When there's clarity in speech, there's clarity in behavior also. This is why the guide in the story of the City of Light did not meet anyone. He preferred to live in solitude, believing, in every circumstance I am intoxicated. I am truth, consciousness, bliss. Consciousness, bliss am I. Consciousness, bliss am I. Consciousness, bliss am I. Truth, consciousness, bliss is Sat Chit Ananda. The traveler who went out of his room and spoke to everyone became deluded, as the thought waves of others influenced him. Humans may be embodied beings, but our essence is energy. What we say and think spreads around like waves. Very important. Very important. Humans may be embodied being. Yeah, I'll read the whole thing again. I highlighted it because obviously I found that important. The traveler who went out of his room and spoke to everyone became deluded, as the thought waves of others influenced him. Humans may be embodied beings, but our essence is energy. What we say and think spreads around like waves. The thought that is arising in your mind right now is spreading everywhere in the form of waves. Radio waves exist in the atmosphere, but they're not visible. You need a special instrument to catch them, a radio. You also need to turn its dial around to get the right station. Only then do the radio waves emerge in the form of audible words. If you do not possess a radio, however, you cannot say that radio waves don't exist. Right? I recall a small incident. Once we were traveling with Sri Swamiji. We hailed a taxi and our group of 3 or 4 sannyasins jumped in. The taxi driver was an atheist. At first, he wasn't very happy to see sannyasins occupying his taxi. But after we had traveled a little distance, he opened up and initiated a conversation. Where have you come from? What do you do? I have seen many sannyasins. They all deceive each other and rob ordinary people. He went on talking and said, all these sannyasins believe in God. I don't believe in God. I haven't seen him to this day. Therefore, I don't believe that he exists. If he existed, then I would have been able to see him. For so many thousands of years, people have been trying to see God, but nobody has been successful. All this is lies. It's all nonsense. Am I right or am I wrong, Swamiji? Sri Swamiji remained quiet for some time. Then he said, "You are right. Whatever your view is right for you. But reply to a question of mine. Have you ever seen a radio wave?" The driver remained silent. Sri Swamiji said, "But you can experience it when you turn on a radio." The same applies to God. God is a wave which you cannot see. But if you fine-tune or adjust your mind, you will be able to receive that wave. You will be able to experience and feel God's existence. Everything that you experience in life is a wave. After all, what is joy? Joy also has a waveform which you experience in the mind and the senses. What is pain? It may be a circumstance externally, but its experience is in the form of a wave which is influencing your mind and emotions. Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva are terms that are used to describe the Gunas, but they are experienced as waves. You send out waves into the world, and the world sends out waves to you. This exchange of waves is the mind, but its gross expression is speech, right? This exchange of waves is mind, but its gross expression is speech. Therefore, the first step in speech restraint is ensuring that your words do not cause misunderstanding or harm anyone. Thus it has been said, Satyam Bruyat, Priyam Bruyat. Speak the truth, speak what is pleasant. One who can practice truth and pleasantness in speech is able to acquire speech restraint. All right, so that was speech restraint. Pleasantness and truth, measured speech, right? There's an essence to what we're saying, and it's received as a wave. So before, most people just kind of just let it all flow out and blurt out. No filter, as they say. And some people take pride in not having a filter, or having a lack of control over themselves. But the more that you're able to manage that aspect of yourself, the better off you'll be. So that was speech restraint. Let's now get into mental restraint. The second form of restraint is mental restraint. You have to remember to observe the mind in order to acquire mental restraint. The best way to observe the mind is not observing the thoughts or activities taking place in the mind, but knowing your weaknesses and ambitions, strengths and needs. Check that out. So when it comes to mental restraint, it's better to know and understand the context of your mind, not necessarily the content of the mind, right? He says here, the best way to observe the mind is not observing the thoughts or the activities taking place in the mind, right? Not the stuff that you're thinking about, not the thoughts or the activities, but knowing your weaknesses and ambitions, your strengths and your needs. Key. I highlighted this part. Strengths represent the Sattvic qualities or positive forces of life. Weaknesses represent the Tamasic qualities or limitations and conditions which you are unable to transcend. Ambitions represent the rajasic qualities and the desires which motivate you. Needs are a balance of all three. In the usual involvement with vrittis, you are more aware of the limitations, the tamasic quality, and the ambitions, the rajasic quality. All right, so he equates the limitations with tamas and the ambitions with rajas. In the course of the journey through life, ambitions always remain highlighted in the mind. The rajasic quality is always predominant because that is what is motivating you continuously. That is your drive. However, when you are unable to acquire what you desire due to certain limitations or constraints, you become acutely aware of those limiting factors, the Tamasic quality, and they pull you down into depression and dejection, into believing that you are not an achiever. Thus, the mind has to be seen in terms of strengths, weaknesses, ambitions, and needs. Every individual has certain strengths which they are identified with. Your strengths will be visible in your mode of work and thinking, and that enables others to come to a conclusion about your state of mind. If you are able to cultivate the strengths of mind, you are increasing the level of sattva. You are invoking the qualities which will help you progress in life. Weaknesses define your limits, that which you cannot cross over. Think, what are the weaknesses of your life, and to what extent do they sway you? If insecurity, anxiety for the future, or intense passions continuously overwhelm you, then tamoguna predominates in your life. That's worth highlighting. If insecurity, anxiety for the future, or intense passions continuously overwhelm you, then tamoguna predominates in your life. These weaknesses do not allow evolution of life and limit you within certain boundaries. Limitations and weaknesses are tamasic. They define the limit of your participation and involvement. You are unable to go beyond them. When you identify with a limitation, you become tamasic. And when you identify with strength of character, you become sattvic. A lot of people identify with a limitation. Again, most people tell you who they are if you just listen. Most people don't listen. But most people that I've seen identify with a limitation. They say, oh, I'm this, or I've got this, or I'm diagnosed with that. And they identify with that as a personality trait, as a character trait, right? And that's extremely tamasic. That in itself is self-destructive. When you identify with strength of character, you become sattvic. What you focus on expands, right? There's limitless things in this world, but what you choose to focus your attention on, that's what becomes magnified. Right. In the same way, another state of mind reflects ambition. Everyone has certain ambitions, whether in respect to their own self, family, or society. However, caught up in the whirlpool of worldly vrittis, often you are unable to discern whether an ambition is beneficial or harmful. An ambition can also become your entire goal in life, and that is when you are sucked even deeper into worldly vrittis. Awareness of aspirations and ambitions is manifestation of the rajasik nature. This is my ambition. Even if it is the last thing I do, I'm going to achieve it. Such self-projection and aggression is rajasik. Needs are basic to everyone's life, whether a saint or a sinner. The basic needs are shelter, food, and clothes, which represent the security that every individual requires. Whether you are saint, king, or beggar, you need all three: food, shelter, and clothes, right? Whether you are a saint, a king, or a beggar, you need all three. Any attempt to fulfill these needs is an indication of the three gunas in a state of harmony. However, when you identify with an ambition, you become rajasik. When needs become ambition, they become rajasik. When needs become ambition, they become rajasik. Right? You need clothing, but when you desire only branded clothes because they're fashionable, that's rajoguna. You need shoes, but when you will only settle for a Nike or a Yeezus, that is rajoguna. Need is a state of harmony in the Gunas. But when ambition becomes attached to it, it becomes rajasik. Right? I hope you guys are getting that point. It's not a wrong thing or bad thing to need and seek shelter, food, and clothes. Like, you need that to live, of course. But it's when you start getting attached, right? Like he said, everyone needs clothes, but when you can only wear that certain brand, you're going off into territory that is harmful to self. The four conditions of strength, weakness, ambition, and need, right? The four conditions of strength, weakness, ambition, and need cause ripples in the quiet state of mind and then influence the mind in the form of vrittis. Therefore, the first step in the process of mental restraint is to identify them, recognize them, realize them, and then manage them. Again, the first step in the process of mental restraint is to identify them, recognize them, realize them, and then manage them. Management or acquisition of mental restraint takes place through meditation. In the 24 hours of your daily life, devote at least 1 hour regularly to your sadhana. 23 hours are for following the world, the senses, and sense objects. At this time, forget everything else other than fulfilling what you need to. But use the last remaining hour for introspection, reflection, observation, analysis, modification, and transformation. I highlighted that because that's extremely important. 23 hours in a day. Take at least 1 hour, just 1 hour, for introspection, reflection, observation, analysis, modification, and transformation. Everybody here, right? All 50 of y'all in the chat has 1 hour of your day to take to observe yourself, not some book, not somebody else, not a god or deity, yourself, right? Can you take an hour for your own growth? Introspection, reflection, observation, analysis, modification, and transformation. Again, this is what makes this a science, not a religion, because there's nothing that you have to believe on faith. This is everything that you're testing in the laboratory of self. Mental restraint has to become a meditative process. Observe the rajaguna tendencies of the mind or the ambitions. Observe the sattvaguna tendencies of the mind or the strengths. Observe the tamoguna tendencies of the mind or the weaknesses. Right? So Rajas is equated with ambition. Sattva is equated with your strength. Tamas is related to your weaknesses. See which guna or tendency is predominant, right? Are you somebody who in your self-observation and your self-awareness, are you somebody who identifies with your ambitions? Are you somebody that identifies with your strengths? Are you somebody that identifies with your weaknesses? When you do your self-talks, when you have your time just with yourself and you're narrating your reality and you're talking and you're doing your own inner reflections, listen to your words, pay attention to yourself. Like what's it thinking about your thinking, right? Metacognition. I know it can be something difficult for people, but listen to yourself as you speak and as you talk. Observe yourself and try to become aware of and analyze what's going on. Are you coming from a perspective of somebody who is identifying with your ambitions, with your strengths, or with your weaknesses? That's extremely important because at least if you see where you are, you can know how to move where you want to go, right? See which guna or tendency is predominant and how you can compensate for that negative tendency by bringing in another positive tendency. Thus, mental restraint is a process of self-observation, self-analysis, self-reflection, and a need to transform and change. This comes about through meditation, not meditation as defined in the sequence of pratyahara, dharana, and dhyana, but a simple meditation in which you close your eyes. Boom, he's telling you right here, just the simplest meditation for this whole process. Nothing extra deep, nothing where you can say, I can't do it. This is like extremely simple and doable by anyone who can read this or hear this, right? He says the type of meditation he's talking about right now, he wrote the book called Dharana Darshan, right? So this is somebody who knows about some serious meditation, not social media meditation, but like the real meditation. But this is what he's saying about the self-analysis part. Look at what he says, right? Mental restraint is a process of self-observation, self-analysis, self-reflection, and a need to transform and change. This comes about through meditation, not meditation as defined in the sequence of pratyahara, dharana, and dhyana, but a simple meditation in which you close your eyes and begin to see yourself and your mind. You observe it and try to recognize and become aware of what is actually needed to change a quality, character, or behavior of the mind and adopt that in your life. That's something that you can do. You listening to me read this book, and you thinking about what's written here. This is something that you can do. You don't have to read any of these books to do this particular exercise. You just sit still, close your eyes, and analyze and observe yourself, your behavior, your thoughts, and everything, and make an assessment. Make a labeling, a categorization, right? And you recognize yourself and you become aware of what's actually needed to change the negative qualities, characters, and behaviors of your mind, what's required, and then implementing that, right? You can't get any more simple than that. If you want change, right? I'm not just talking about the little feel-good meditations where you come out and, oh, I feel good, but if you want positive change. Let's continue now to the third restraint. The third one is called sense restraint. The third restraint is indriya sanyam, restraint of the senses. The senses are always seeking their own gratification. The eyes like to see what is pleasant to them. The ears like to hear what is pleasant to them. The tongue likes to taste what is pleasant to it. The skin likes to touch what is pleasant to it. The nose likes to smell what is pleasant to it. All the senses are seeking self-gratification. Peace, orange soda. All the senses are seeking self-gratification. There would be no harm in seeking self-gratification if there was no other option. However, as a human being, you do have another option, which is to contain and restrict the involvement of the senses with sense objects. This is possible only through jnana, wisdom. And we will be reading the book on that very soon. This is only possible through jnana, wisdom, through acquiring a concept of what is just and appropriate. Jnana is wisdom, and it's also a type of yoga, specifically the type of yoga that's being described right now. Wisdom yoga, yoga of the mind. This is not easy. For instance, people who suffer from illnesses such as diabetes, have to follow certain dietary restrictions. They cannot eat rice, potatoes, or sweets, but it is often difficult for them to control the urge to eat those things. They think, I have taken my insulin injection today. I am sure I can allow myself one sweet. I am sure I can allow myself the indulgence of potatoes. I am sure I can eat some rice. A peculiar desire surfaces to indulge in that which is prohibited, and you are unable to eliminate it. That is because you lack sensory discipline. You lack the mental conviction and sankalpa shakti. Therefore, the senses can sway you at any time. If you possessed sankalpa shakti and restraint, 20 inviting plates of sweets could be before you, but you would not try to find a justification for picking even one sweet because you know that they will further damage your system. There are many things the senses crave, and you like to follow these whims of the senses. However, in order to evolve, you have to come to the point where you are able to control the senses through your wisdom and sankalpa shakti and say, "Thank you for your advice, but I have another thought." Restraint of the senses, speech, and mind are the 3 steps that begin the awakening of the positive forces and counteract the negative influences of vrittis. Restraint, along with discipline, is a sadhana of life. So far, this lays it out really, really clear, right? And it's literally at this point, when you face this information, your decision is I'm ready to move forward or I'm prepared to just stay where I'm at. Like, it's literally at this point right now. You're presented with what's necessary to grow, and you can make the choice to move forward or to stay where you're at. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? We're talking about restraint of speech, right? Not talking too damn much, not gossiping, not talking shit about people, not, you know what I'm saying, just over explaining and just vomiting diarrhea of the mouth, right? Then you can just get to the essence of what you're trying to say and just focus on that. Just focus on the essence of what you're trying to say and then filter it with kindness and truthfulness, being as truthful and honest as possible, but also not without the intention of damaging somebody, trying to hurt somebody, right? Restraint of the speech and then restraint of the mind, right? Having restraint of the mind is extremely important. We all have needs. We all need food and shelter and clothes, but we don't need specific name brands because they are those name brands, right? That's starting to go into the territory of attachment. Then, of course, sensory restraint. You know what I'm saying? What's in control, really? What's in control? Are you in control of your body, or are your senses in control? Right? My senses want to eat some, right now I want to go and get me a slice of that, what is it? It's like a turtle pie. What do you call those things? One of those pies that are in the freezer and it's like super delicious with the cream and the caramel. I got one of those. But I don't need to eat that right now. I don't need to eat that right now. I have control over my senses. Do you have control over your senses? If your senses say, I'm about to grab a Coca-Cola and you go get it, for no other reason than your tongue wants to taste something sweet, it sounds like your senses are in control. All right. So restraint, along with discipline, is the sadhana of life. If nothing else, you're learning the difference between your senses and your body being in control or your soul being in control. Let's continue. Living systematically. There has to be a system and structure in your day-to-day activities. If there's a nice movie playing on television, you will stay up till 1 o'clock watching it. If there's a party, you will go there and stay up the whole night. As for food habits, whether you are hungry or not, you will munch on something if you feel like it because food is available to you in plenty. Open the refrigerator door at any time and enjoy. Your fridge is stacked with a choice of drinks, snacks, and food, and you constantly indulge in them. In fact, the choices are so many that people now live to eat rather than eat to live. And they also love to eat. Anushasana, or discipline, means creation of a system in the normal routine of life. There must be time to sleep, to rise, to eat, not to eat, to work, and relax. The word Anushasana is composed of 2 words. Anu, meaning subtle, and Shasana, meaning to govern or to rule. Therefore, What is called discipline in English is called Anushasana in Sanskrit. Its literal meaning being acquiring the ability to control the subtle behaviors of one's nature. Again, its literal meaning is being acquiring the ability to control the subtle behaviors of one's nature. Can you control the subtle behaviors of your nature? Do you have the power to control the subtle behavior of your nature? Most people cannot say yes, right? Most people cannot say yes. So that's what we're working on here, is acquiring the ability to control the subtle behaviors of one's nature. If you don't have control of the subtle behaviors of your nature, think about it. Then what does? It sounds like those subtle behaviors are controlling you. And we talk about free will, right? We talk about, oh, I'm not coming back to this plane. All the hot, fancy shit that people say, right? All the hot, cool, fancy, trendy, spiritual stuff that people say. When you say that, at the same time, ask yourself, do I have the ability to control the subtle behaviors of my nature? Not just the big behaviors, but the subtle ones, the ones that are going on in the split second decisions, in the right now, right? When you catch a whiff of something and you say, oh, I want some more of that. When you catch a glimpse of something and you say, oh, I want some more of that. Are the subtle behaviors in control, or are you in control of those subtle behaviors? Let's continue. Acquiring the ability to control the subtle behavior of your character, personality, or nature indicates that you can avoid tension. Tension is a subtle manifestation of the mind over which you do not have any control. If the mind is agitated, there is tension. If desires are not fulfilled, if you do not have food or clothes, there is tension. What is called tension in the broad sense is actually a subtle expression of the mind. These subtle expressions distort the mind, cloud the intellect, and destroy peace. Tension need not be conscious. It can also be subconscious and unconscious, affecting the entire personality, body, mind, and emotions. Once there's tension, peace and happiness will disappear from life. When the subtle behavior is recognized, you are able to see its effect and how it's causing tension. Recognizing it is the first step, right? When the subtle behavior is recognized, you are able to see its effect and how it's causing tension. By creating a system and a structure, you eliminate the causes of tension. Elimination of tension is yoga. Learning how to manage the subtle tensions is another definition of yoga. Being able to manage subtle tensions allows you to rule and govern your nature and personality and become the master of your own life. Becoming the master of your life means tada drashta swarup avastanam. Then you are established in your own nature. That's the third verse of the first Yoga Sutra. So the second verse talks about the management of the vrittis is yoga. The third verse says, once you become the master of your life, then you are established in your own nature. Once you those vrittis, then you're established in your own nature. In the Pravritti path, the aim of sadhana is acquisition of a structure, system, discipline, and restraint which will lead to the lessening of tamasic and rajasik qualities and allow cultivation of the Sattvic character. With cultivation of the Sattvic character, you become motivated to discover the inner dimension and begin the journey in the Nivritti path. Cool beans. So that was the Pravritti path. That talked all about the vrittis. That talked all about the subtle disturbances of mind that really push us to do what we do. We run towards pleasure, run away from pain. And as we run, we are governed by the five senses. Maybe you've seen a picture of Abraxas, right? And that's a picture of the rooster god, and he's got a whip and a shield in his hand. He's riding on a chariot with four horses pulling him in multiple directions. Well, that's kind of the same thing. Those five senses are pulling you in a specific direction, but you're not driving the chariot. The horses are driving you. So where does a chariot go if all the horses are going in different directions? Each one of them fighting for control. That is disorder and chaos. But that's how most people live, you know. At least in our country, I don't know about other countries, but we eat way too much. Like, we eat so much. We're constantly stuffing our face with food. And it's done out of habit, but also because the tongue rules. Like he said in this book, we don't eat to live. We live to eat, and we love it. It's delicious. Likewise, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all know these people, and maybe you're one of them that spends their rent money on overpriced super name brand clothes, right? When they should be taking care of other things. They have to look extremely good for Snapchat. For what though? Like, why? Because we want approval, right? We want somebody to look at us and say, wow, he's got it going on, right? You know, all this stuff indicates an out of control mind. Out of control. But anyways, I really enjoy books written by Swami Niranjan Ananda Saraswati because they're very clear and extremely direct and easy to understand. Like, you don't have to stretch your mind to understand what was written here. So I hope that you feel the same way. I hope that you enjoyed this chapter. I hope you learned something. I hope you're able to pick something out of here that you can sit down and really think about. You know, this stuff I found to be extremely helpful in my development. Like this chapter alone, and this is a really short book, but what's in here is very potent information, very useful information. And yeah, I hope that you feel the same way. I hope that you're able to pull something out of this and apply it to your life. You know, and I hope that it also serves to kind of demystify what yoga is really about and how self-improvement and self-growth, how those things are really going to work. It's not about anything that's like outlandish or crazy or supernatural. It's literally starting at the atomic level of doing what he says here, acquiring the ability to control the subtle behaviors of one's nature. That's what this game is about. When you look around at the chaos and craziness of the rest of this planet, these people do not have any control over themselves. They don't have any control over the subtle behaviors of their nature. They do stuff and then they look back and they're like, oh, I wasn't myself, or I wasn't in control, or I couldn't resist, or they made me do it. Like, that's not a person in control. How can you feel safe, secure, or trust with someone who doesn't even have control over themselves? You know what I'm saying? So I hope that you have some awareness now on what a vritti is, how it's caused, and what can be done about them. It's not about deleting the vrittis. It's about managing them. It's about managing them. Virez Beats says, so is there a time to, what'd you say? Is there a time to indulge in those things, or because we know they're not healthy, we just use the restraint not to eat those things? So again, it's about management. If you decide that you no longer want them in your life, then eradicate them. But you know what? I'll tell you the truth. I bought a 12-pack of Coca-Cola soda, right? Now for months, several months, maybe even a year, I stopped drinking soda, and I've just been drinking like, what's it called? You know, like the sparkling water, because I wanted to cut the sugar out, soda out, whatever. But I decided, hell, why not? And I went ahead and got some. Now, that's not something I'm going to continue doing. I just did it once because I wanted to. Fully aware that, I stopped. I gave it up, but shit, I wanted to. Now, we can discuss where that want came from. Some vritti was triggered, of course, but I'm well aware of that. Well aware of that. I'm also aware of how an uncontrolled vritti can gain strength and take over the personality. So again, once that 12 pack runs out, I'm not going to buy it anymore. But to answer your question there, do what you want. Do what you want. But just understand what's happening. That's the whole thing. It's not the content, it's the context, right? What's happening? Are you buying those those super expensive shoes because you want them, or because you have a need, an unresolved desire to impress somebody, or to have a certain image? You know what I'm saying? If that's the case, you're not in control, right? Your insecurities are in control, because now you want to impress some strangers on the internet. You're not in control there, right? You didn't make that decision. Your insecurity made that decision. So that means the vritti is stronger than your will. What we want to do is we want to manage these vrittis, become aware of them, and to reduce them. We can't destroy them, because we have to have them. They're a response of existing in this material plane. When consciousness comes into contact with matter, it causes the ripples. That's where the vrittis come from, just from us existing. And the deeper that they ripple, we start to identify with them. And like this book said, that's tamasic behavior. And tamasic behavior leads to density, which means we start to believe that we are the ripples. And that's where the trouble starts, because we are now identifying with matter. And that is what leads to suffering, because we're attached to it. Another important thing that happened a little bit earlier was where he talked about non-attachment, right? And how I talked about non-attachment isn't about avoiding pain and like ignoring people and pretending like you don't care. That's not what non-attachment is. Non-attachment, he talked about here on page 20. He says, as you become more entangled in the vrittis, the tamasic qualities manifest. As you develop more vrittis, the rajasik qualities manifest. Nope, that's not the part. Here we go. Nope, that's not it either. Here we go. Yeah. You have to know the reason why vrittis are created within you and how they connect you with the world of senses and sense objects, and remain free from their influence, which dilutes the clarity, strength, and positive qualities of the mind. So this part about remaining free from their influence, that's non-attachment. All this stuff is happening. This stuff is happening all around you, right? There is chaos. There are people who are freaking out. There's all these different things going on in the world. You literally have a choice to join in with that or to stay unaffected by it, right? Remain free from their influence. That's what it says here. That's non-attachment. Having the ability to remain free from the influence of these ripples, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. I'm unbothered. I don't give a damn about what these people are talking about. The only degree of me caring what people are talking about with this whole world drama is so that I can have something to, a touch point to communicate with when I go on live stream or when I talk to people. But as far as like me actually caring about what's going on out there, I don't give a damn about this stuff. It has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. But I acknowledge that it exists. There are things that are going on. You can't deny that they're not going on. Sure. Right? And who knows? Maybe they will have an impact on me someday. Maybe they won't. But I got something else that I'm concerned with right now. Non-attachment is remaining free from the influence of all these things, right? So it's not about pretending it doesn't exist. It's not about running from it. It's not about avoiding it. You just remain free from the influence. It's that simple. It's that simple. What's going on in the sports world, that I'm not, it has no influence on me whatsoever. I might pick up bits and pieces from my brothers talking about it just so I can have a conversation, but I don't care. But anyways, this was a great chapter, I think, because it really, he went into some good detail about the modifications of the mind and how we get wrapped up in them. And he even gave different things that you can do to start to lessen the influence of these vrittis. And that's important. If you're listening to somebody who's telling you about the problem, make sure that they're talking about the solution too. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste of your energy. We all know that there are issues in the world. And if the person that's complaining isn't giving you a solution, they're just complaining. And you can do that by yourself. So, yeah, good talk. Thank you guys. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for hanging out. Again, I hope that you got something from this that's beneficial to you. I enjoy doing this. I will continue doing this. If you would like to support me in doing this, by all means, join the membership because that really helps me to be able to do this every day, and give back. If you want to join the live stream on Sunday so that you can share your experience, what you've gotten from this, because, we all have different perspectives. You know what I'm saying? Like, you may have seen something that I didn't see, and I'm open to learning from everybody, right? I'm not one of those people who is just like, oh, here I am on the top of the mountain and I can't learn anything from anyone else. Like, it's not like that. I want to open the stage because I want to hear what you have to say. So, join the membership and jump on the live stream and let's talk about this. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys, and this has been fun. Most definitely. Most definitely. Also, if any of you guys are interested in taking my class, the Inner Light Activation System, I will be opening the doors to that February. So you're going to hear more about that as I open the doors to the class once again. This might be the last one that I'm doing live. So if you want to go through this training with the live courses, then this will be the chance to do it. After this, I'm probably just going to have it pre-recorded and automated, which is still going to be awesome, but it's not going to have like the live Thursday meetings. So keep that in mind. And I'm about to head out. Thank you again. Please like the video. And I'll probably be back on here tomorrow night. All right. All right. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys. Peace.